trade tensions escalate. The United States is ramping up its global trade offensive. President Trump has announced sharp new tariffs: 25% on India, 50% on Brazil, and up to 35% on Canadian exports. These moves are framed as a reaction to unfair fair practices and unresolved political interference, according to the White House. South Korea managed to avoid steep penalties by striking a last-minute agreement. The U.S. will impose a 15% tariff on Korean goods in exchange for $100 billion in American energy purchases and $350 billion in Korean investment into the U.S. economy. International markets are on edge, with fears that this wave of protectionism could derail fragile economic recoveries in several key regions. Market response and tech surge. Despite trade tensions, the markets are holding strong. U.S. stock futures rallied after impressive earnings from Meta and Microsoft. Both companies exceeded forecasts due to continued AI investment and cloud infrastructure demand. However, signs of inflation persist. The Federal Reserve's preferred inflation measure, the PCE index, rose by 0.3% in June. This keeps the possibility of further interest rate hikes on the table, adding to investor uncertainty. Meanwhile, copper prices plunged after new tariffs on copper wiring imports were introduced, particularly targeting Chinese suppliers. IMF revises global growth forecast. The International Monetary Fund has slightly raised its global growth outlook for 2025 to 3.0% and 3.1% for 2026. The IMF credits the early year economic rebound, especially in the US and India, but warns that escalating tariffs, especially those now implemented, could quickly reverse progress. Their report emphasizes the risks of tariff overhang and recommends renewed global dialogue to prevent fragmentation of supply chains. Humanitarian crisis in Gaza. The humanitarian situation in Gaza has worsened dramatically. Over 110 Palestinians were killed in the last 24 hours alone. Most casualties occurred near aid distribution centers. The United Nations has confirmed famine-like conditions across northern and central Gaza. Thousands lack access to food, water, and medical supplies. President Trump, speaking at a press event, stated that the fastest way to end the humanitarian crisis is for Hamas to surrender. At the same time, diplomatic pressure is growing as several countries prepare to recognize a Palestinian state during the upcoming UN General Assembly session. Ukraine enacts reform, suffers new attack. In a major legislative win, Ukraine's parliament has passed a bill restoring independence to two key anti-corruption institutions. President Zelensky quickly signed the bill into law. EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen praised the move, calling it a critical step toward EU accession. The celebration was tempered by tragedy. At least 8 people, including several children, were killed in a Russian missile strike on the Kharkiv region just hours after the reform passed. Pacific earthquake sparks global response. A massive 8.8 magnitude earthquake struck off the Kamchatka Peninsula in Russia's far east. Although the tremor triggered tsunami alerts across the Pacific, rapid response systems ensured successful evacuations of more than 3 million people in coastal zones. No casualties have been reported. Experts are praising global early warning networks, especially Japan and US-led systems, for preventing a major disaster. However, some have warned that funding cuts to oceanic monitoring programs could jeopardize future readiness. ECB considers further rate cuts. The European Central Bank may move toward more rate cuts in the fall in response to increasing imports of low-cost Chinese goods. This influx could reduce inflation by 0.15 percentage points in 2026. However, the long-term impact of such deflationary pressures could harm eurozone industrial competitiveness, placing the ECB in a policy dilemma between growth and stability. Political realignments. The headlines of today show a clear trend of geopolitical realignment. The United States is hardening its trade and military posture. China and the BRICS bloc are quietly expanding economic influence across Africa and Southeast Asia. The Gaza conflict and Ukraine war continue to shape international coalitions, while organizations like the IMF and ECB navigate unprecedented volatility. The global stage is shifting fast. Whether it's tariffs, earthquakes, diplomacy, or war, we are witnessing a rapidly evolving world order. That's it for today's briefing. From economic flashpoints to humanitarian emergencies, You've just heard the stories shaping July 31st, 2025. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share for more clear, concise, and global news right here on Asta.